Imagine waking up one morning and your money is gone. You've been a victim of cybercrime. Unfortunately, growth in that industry is at an all-time high. In fact, cybercrime expected to cost consumers over $10 trillion over per year, projecting out in the year 2025. So by the year 2025, the global loss on an annual basis in excess of $10 trillion. So what are the steps that you can take to try and avoid this? We're going to be joined by a special guest later on in the program. Happens to be an IT expert, Ron Cervantes of C Solutions IT, to discuss at length some of the things that you and I, and certainly some of the things that we do on a regular basis here at the office, do in order to make sure that things are as safe as they can be. So welcome on into the program. This, of course, is Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. Certainly, it would make sense to try and avoid to become a victim of cybercrime, right? So very topical conversation on the program today. My name, of course, Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary at Nelson Financial Planning, where our team of certified financial fiduciary stands ready this week to help you improve and change your life with a successful and cost-effective financial plan. So speaking of holding on to your wallets, you're going to love this one, folks. The IRS is thinking about creating a government-run tax preparation service. Hold on for just a second. The same organization who won't answer your call for, days is now thinking of expanding their ever fabulous customer service. Isn't that great? Big dreams for that extra $80 billion that they're expected to get from Congress. Not only will they be auditing you more frequently, but now they're going to be preparing the document that's going to be audited. What could possibly go wrong? Plus, from there, where does it go, right? I mean, we all know that a lot of information gets copied to the IRS, right? Our W-2s, certainly our 1099s, dividend statements, capital gains, 1099 income. I mean, all of that, mortgage interest. Think about all that stuff that gets copied to the IRS. All those 10109, all those forms that you get, a second copy goes off to the IRS. So what's to stop them from then saying, you know what, we got all this data. We're going to do a little first draft of your tax return. And then you, the taxpayer, the burden is on you to change it accordingly. Now, the good news is that this is just a conversation. And it's something that the IRS is exploring. But when you get $80 billion extra dollars, I mean, come on. It's all kinds of cool stuff you can do with it to immerse yourself further into the average taxpayer's life. So now they are investigating whether they want to create a government-run tax preparation service. The reality, though, is it's not really creating one. It's actually expanding one, because the option to file free with the IRS directly actually already exists. It's called the IRS Free File Program, right? Appropriately named. And it helps people with certain incomes to file for free. To qualify, you got to have income under $73,000. So generally it's for folks in that lower percentage of income. And I guess the important thing to know of all this is that, well, first of all, it is in sort of the study phase. But the more you have the organization that audits your information wanting to prepare the form that has your information on it, the greater the problem. Combined with the fact that any service isn't actually free, right? We all know that, right? There's nothing free in this world. Similarly, a free tax preparation service provided by you by the most esteemed, most respected, best customer service institution in America, by the way, that was meant to be sarcastic, is all of a sudden going to start to prepare your return free. Well, we all know it's not going to be free, right? It won't be free because certainly it's not free to build that software, right? Imagine you're trying to build a software package that covers however many pages of IRS code there are. I think there's like 100,000 pages. I mean, that's not something you can just kind of wake up and, throw a few lines of code together and all of a sudden, hey, there's the software right there. So it's not going to be free to build. It's certainly not going to be free to maintain. None of that stuff always is because they keep changing the tax code each and every year. I mean, a lot of professional tax software, it takes a while to ultimately get the final versions of the forms because the IRS doesn't issue out the regulations involving the forms until oftentimes late in the year. We actually have some forms for the 2022 tax season in our office that still are not finalized. So it's not going to be free to build. It's not going to be free to maintain. It certainly won't be free to maintain. Plus, what about all those states that have state income tax? Right? So great, I got my federal return done. I still got to go and power through my state return. I mean, the issues here are enormous. So imagine that. The government that is here to help prepping your tax forms and then coming behind and auditing them. What? Tell your congressperson in D.C. this is a really, really bad idea. Unless you don't mind the IRS involved in all your business and think it's a good idea, then you can call and tell them that. But we would be on the side where we think that's a bad idea. We would encourage you, if you think that as well, to call your congressperson in D.C. and say, I don't want the IRS doing anything more than what it already does, because the reality is that what it does do now isn't really all that great in terms of customer service. So why are we expanding that role? Why don't we just focus on doing a better job with the current layout that we have? So certainly a bit of a disturbing headline of late, talking about the IRS and what its future plans are. How about answer the phone timely and provide taxpayers valuable information when they need it? Let's start there. But anyway, I digress. So we've got a lot of topics that we like to talk about on the program. And so many times when we talk about it on the program, it's important. One of the things that we always kind of come back to is just how important it is to protect yourself from scams and cyber crimes. So when we get back from the break, we're going to be joined by a special guest, Ron Cervantes of C Solutions IT. And we're going to talk at length about some of the things that you can do to help protect yourself from this ever-growing problem among American consumers and businesses. Coming up next here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris of Nelson Financial Planning. So as you know, on this program, we talk an awful lot about ways to help you make good decisions with your money, right? After all, the show aptly named Dollars and Cents, we thought it would be a good idea to sort of expand on a topic that we see hit from time to time, and that is the notion of how to protect yourself from scams, and in particular, of course, in today's world, cybercrime, which is a massive growth industry. As we said at the beginning of the show, it is growing at an enormous pace, projected globally. Cybercrimes to steal over $10 trillion. That's $1 trillion on an annual basis by the year 2025. That's a lot of money, and it hits everybody. Frankly, probably not a matter of if, but when that you will be exposed to a cyber attack or attempt to steal money from you. And then that money is gone. It's not like the stock market, right? Market goes up and down. You kind of maybe lose money one day or 1 month or a year or whatever the case may be. Stock market's got a pretty reliable history of recovering and going on to always set higher highs. When you lose money with a cybercrime, that's it. It is gone. Your chances of recovery, probably zero. So we thought it would be a good idea to spend some time on some of the best practices that you can follow to help protect yourself, you and your money. So joining me on the program today for this conversation is our longtime IT professional at Nelson Financial Planning. Ron Cervantes is owner of C Solutions IT, where you provide peace of mind for your business technology. I like that slogan. That's really good. Very creative. So welcome to the program, Ron.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Excellent. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself, your background. How did you get into this line of work?
Yeah, sure. So IT's always been my field of study. I graduated a long time ago with a degree in management information systems. I got a master's degree shortly after that, again in management information systems. I ran the IT department for a local trailer leasing company. And when I started there were 4 of us, and after a few years, it was just me. Through efficiencies, I was able to handle that and supported about 80 users locally, within the company itself. About 75 of them, maybe 60 of those are about remote, and then I had 20 local users.
So early on in the remote world, if you will.
Yeah,
because now it's all the thing, but you were one of the early ones.
5 to 10, somewhere around there.
Right.
And so I was able to support all of them, and the company financially went under around 2013. And at that point, I said, I handle this by myself for this company. I could do it for others. And
sure.
So that became my focus. In addition to that, I got into teaching as an adjunct professor for a local online university, and that kind of bridged the gap as I continue to grow my client base. But it taught me, having the experience of teaching, taught me patience with users.
Which is especially important sometimes when you have to deal with one of your clients at Nelson Financial Planning, right?
Absolutely.
Why is this not working the way it should? Yes.
Deep breaths. That's right.
Well, and I think the best service, or I think the best thing that you do is, to have, as a small company, to have your own IT person, your chief information technology officer or something like that, it's just cost prohibitive. So the beauty of what you do in your business is that you kind of help bridge the gap, because obviously you have more clients than just us. All of them are corporations, smaller businesses, where you're in essence serving that role.
Absolutely. So I essentially say that I am a outsourced IT department for a business that doesn't have a need for a full-time IT person. I'm just a trusted resource, help desk, on call, and just consider myself basically a part of their company.
Well, and I know we certainly rely on you, and you are invaluable in terms of keeping us up with the latest technology. And it seems like it's every day where there's something new that needs to be done in order to combat what these criminals are doing out there.
It's a very reactionary position to take with it all, because they're always going to be one step ahead of us. As you said, with $10 trillion, crime truly pays.
Yeah, Indeed.
It's going to be there.
So every quarter, our office has sort of a quarterly breakfast. We take the team off site. We kind of talk about different things. So at the last one, I invited you in to kind of go over some best practices and things like that for the team as a whole, in order to make sure that we're not running into any issues. Because, as you've said, I think the biggest way that a company can get tripped up on is not something from the outside coming in, but rather an activity that somebody does inside, more importantly.
Yeah. technology itself is security-wise, it's just not enough anymore. There's a human element, the education that really needs to come through so that employees know what they can do to keep themselves safe, to recognize a threat when they see it, avoid it, and be able to protect against it. And so much of the education just comes from all that security awareness training. The tools are a separate part that can help block a lot of the threats, but again, there's just that huge human element.
Yeah, not a function of if you're going to be attempted to be a victim of it, or if you're going to have an issue, but just when.
Yeah,
and the importance of recognizing.
I'm never going to guarantee a client that you're going to be safe.
Right.
All I can do is
wait. You did?
No, I swear I didn't. We don't have that on record. Yeah, my job is to minimize risk as small as possible, right?
Sure.
And you think about a lion hunting its prey, the faster one's going to get away, and we want to be the faster one.
Well, and to that point, that's why I know every employee at Nelson Financial Planning, every month they have to do a training of sort of the latest thing, and it's this video series, and then you have to do some Q&A and things like that. So those are the kinds of things that I think as a business that you can certainly do to try and reduce down that risk of what happens from people clicking on things that they shouldn't by accident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and things coming through, as you said, clicking through things, whether it's browsing or specifically through email, majority of the threats are going to be from that, and so those are one of the biggest things to recognize.
So when we talk about these threats, where are they coming from? Like where is? I mean, is this my neighbor across the road, or I mean, where are some of these threats coming from that we see on a regular basis?
Honestly, we probably generate them on ourselves.
Okay.
It's going to be our own personal browsing, social media habits, things like that. The more information that is out there available, that can be used against you. Of course, we've heard of phishing emails, right? And there's another term called spear phishing, which means it is a targeted email specifically for you. And so while the phishing email is just a wide net, you're going to send that, cast it out to people, and see if we get any hits. If someone knows, for example, Joel, if someone knows that you're into podcasting, they could send you a specific email that it might be something that you might be interested or think that you might have signed up for, or some sort of service, and say, Joel, this podcasting account that you have with us, whatever, click this link to set up this, whatever it is. And you're like, oh, that sounds like something I would have done. Same thing if someone was interested in golf, they send you a targeted email, and it takes you to a different spot, and they try to gather credentials in some form. Very
targeted for exactly that person.
Yes.
So where do most of these sort of originate globally? And I guess what's the problem with trying to shut down these types of crimes?
You mean geographically?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously, Eastern European countries are going to be a big originator of it. Again, it does pay. Sometimes the government sponsors these attacks as long as they're going to share the money. A big business is actually ransomware as a service. So, in the sense that you could buy Microsoft Word and people can use it, you can buy ransomware and then try to deploy it to organizations to see if they will fall for it. So
wow.
It's a package deal.
Wow.
You don't have to have any technical knowledge.
Wow. I just buy the software much like I buy my Microsoft Word, and
absolutely.
It's my ransom word, and
it is a business.
Out it goes.
It's a true business.
Wow.
They provide tech support. If you do get ransomware, they're like, oh, we're so sorry that happened to you. Here's what we can do to solve this for you, when they're the ones that caused it.
So we got a host of things to talk about, some real practical tips for folks to follow to help protect themselves and their money from these thieves. So we're going to take a break. We come back. We're going to go through kind of a series of Q&A that hopefully will help you protect yourself from these cyber criminals that are lurking out there on a regular basis. Coming up next here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris and Ron Cervantes with Nelson Financial Planning. On the program, we're talking about some of the useful tips and tricks that you can use to help protect yourself from cybercrime. As we've been talking about on the program, it is a growth industry expected to steal over $10 trillion globally by the year 2025. We're joined this morning with fellow Ron Cervantes. He is owner of C Solutions IT. which basically, as we were talking about in the prior program, in the prior segment, works to, in essence, be an IT department for smaller businesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's certainly the role that you serve at Nelson Financial Planning. So we had you at our last quarterly breakfast, our team quarterly breakfast, where you kind of went through and talked about some of the new developments and sort of new best practices. And I guess the best practices continue to evolve. What may have been the best practice to protect yourself a couple of years ago may not be the same thing that you want to follow these days. So this segment of the program, we're going to go through kind of a Q&A, if you will, on some of the things that we talked about in that breakfast seminar. So should I be using my real email address when I sign up for a website? Like if oftentimes you go to a website, you go to blog post, or you want to register or get a hotel room, I got to, put in my email address. It's okay to do that, right? I should just be doing that?
Well, so if you're wanting to have correspondence back and forth on something that's a service that you're going to use, there are some times that we as individuals that we need to input information just to get information back. They want to obtain information. If you don't know that you want to correspond with them in the future, you can definitely either create a temporary email address, not a temporary, but a throwaway account, if you will, like it could just be shopping and some random numbers at gmail.com. And that could be like your separate thing, like that's all where my garbage is going to go. There are also free services out there that you can sign up for a temporary email address that lasts, just a couple hours, where all you need to do is verify that you received the link, and then you can get the information. I mean, if you wanted to get an article, or you just need to sign up for a service, or you just want to find out more things about a service and they want to collect information from you, it's like, I really don't want to give them my stuff and get sales calls. You can just use a temporary email address. And
you want to think about that, but it's really easy to just go get another email address, Gmail or
absolutely,
iCloud or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. And then you can use that one and not just get so inundated with emails, because every time you put your email in, they're selling it to somebody else.
Absolutely. And it's not so, not only for the smallest part, which is that you're quieting down the noise for your inbox and you're not having to get all this stuff that just gets thrown at you. But again, trying not to have your email out there on these lists. Like you said, they may sell it, they may not, and they may say they won't sell it and that they probably won't. But then if there is some sort of a breach, then it's out there anyways.
Right. Well, and that goes to protecting your information. Obviously, whenever you sign up for things, you'll have to put in your date of birth. You talked a little bit about that, about how that's probably a bad idea to sort of do that, to put in your real information when you're signing up for like Facebook or something like that.
Absolutely. Facebook is it sometimes it divides us, sometimes it keeps us together, right? And it'll notify people that when your birthday is, you'll get notified when their birthday is. But if you do have your birthday on Facebook, that's okay. Maybe you don't want to, but 100% please do not put your year of your birth date on there.
So you just put like May 27th, but not not.
And you have the option to leave that blank.
Yeah. So as a side note, I do, my real birthday is not out there.
Good.
Well, only because I didn't know what I was doing when I first set up a Facebook account, because I don't really, personally, I'm not on Facebook, but in order to have a business account on Facebook, it has to be connected to an individual. So when I did that, I was really solely looking to set up the Facebook page for Nelson Financial Planning, but it needed an individual. So it kind of got morphed, and so I used the incorporation date, the date that we started, as the date, because that was what I wanted with the Nelson Financial Planning page, and somewhere, somehow it connected that it was my birthday. So the good news is I'm like 14 years younger. I'm 14 years younger on Facebook than I am in real life. So I like that. But so I got lucky on that one, only by not really understanding what it was that I was doing. But to that end, one of the things that you said in the presentation was, you get all these security questions. Don't answer them truthfully.
Yeah, you do not have to do that. And I recommend you don't. Find a system that works for you. If you get asked these questions about your mother's maiden name, where you were born, all these different questions that someone could actually look up about you and find out. Find a system that works for you, and your mother's maiden name could just be purple, and you come up with and that's what that system is. And you translate that to our social media behavior. If you ever think about, you mentioned Facebook, where people would post, it could be completely benign questions, but it could be like, hey, well, my first car was this, what was yours? And then you have all these people making comments about what their first car was, not realizing that is a common first security question that people would put out there. And so, again, we love to engage, we love to share on Facebook, but consider what you're actually engaging with, and that could be something where they're just trying to collect security questions. There could be someone that's just asking a completely harmless question, but think about what you're answering there and what you're exposing yourself to.
Well, and that is interesting because so often you do have those security questions, and I think basic human nature is you think that there is. You want to be honest, and you think there's some trust, if you will, built up. But the reality is you have to assume that there is zero trust when it comes down to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what struck me is that you're right. You don't have to answer your mother's maiden name question accurately, as long as you can, of course, remember. If you go this path of answering them with fake answers, you just got to remember what your fake answers are.
Yes,
that would certainly be.
If we got
case.
flashed with a Men in Black laser thing, we'd be in trouble.
Yes. We'd definitely be in trouble. So it seems like at the end of the day, really. The goal is to try and be as invisible with your personal information as possible. And that really is sort of best practice in today's world, is create an additional email, answer the security questions differently than what your actual real answers are. Those kinds of things, certainly important. So let's talk a little bit about sort of passwords, because that's always a big struggle for people trying to remember passwords and ultimately trying to change them on a regular basis. So the typical password where you would say it's 8 characters, uppercase, a letter, and a symbol, those kinds of things. I guess because of computing power, those aren't nearly as secure as they once were.
No, they're not. I think the first thing I'd want to clarify on is what happens during what is referred to as a password breach. Typically, when that happens, if you get notified that your password or your account was involved in a breach, is that your password is not immediately exposed. It is a hashed, encoded form of text, and so you use computing power. They'll run a dictionary run on it, so never use anything that is a word that exists in a dictionary as a password. But they'll run a combination of things. They'll also have a list of passwords that they have uncovered previously, right? So they'll use that list, dictionary list, and then they'll run computing power to figure out the probability of what the password is, of what it is. So used to be 8 characters, used to be 10, used to be 12, 14, 16, around that area.
And the computing power has, because you've got a slide that you showed. I mean, the computing power has just changed so dramatically.
Yes, yeah. In the sense, again, it was like 8 characters. You could break it in, like 20 years, something like that, about 3-4 years ago, and now you could do that in just a couple seconds.
Wow.
So
wow.
It changes that all of that, and that the computing power is going to be continuously increasing in the speed.
So that changes kind of what you would typically want to do in terms of passwords and those sorts of things.
Absolutely.
So we'll continue this conversation. We're going to take a break. When we return here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris of Nelson Financial Planning, Ron Cervantes of C Solutions IT, coming up on this next segment here on Dollars and Cents. On the program, we're talking about how you can protect yourself from cybercrime. Imagine waking up and having all your money gone because you clicked on some email or responded to some request. There's some things that you can do to help protect yourself. No guarantees, of course, as we were talking about earlier in the program, because it's a $10 trillion a year industry that is in high growth mode, looking to steal your money or steal your information and then steal your money. So on the program here on Dollars and Cents, we're joined by Ron Cervantes, owner of C Solutions IT. Basically, You guys serve as a IT department for a lot of small businesses in Central Florida, one of which is, of course, Nelson Financial Planning. We were talking before the break about passwords and sort of what the best practices are. And it's no longer upper, lower, a number and a symbol, and it's 8 characters and that's it, because of how much computing power has really changed.
Absolutely. The biggest factor is really the size is important. And so the larger it is, the more difficult it will be that in the event of a breach that it is able to be cracked. And so the subsequent question on that is always, well, how am I supposed to remember a super long password? And that's where password managers come in. And so I would strongly advise listeners to utilize a password manager. And I will say, I would advise against the habit of saving your passwords to your computer browser itself. I suppose it's better than nothing, but there's not a lot that needs to be done in order to view what those passwords are.
To get access to all of it. When Google says, let me remember it, blah, 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 that's a convenience, but that comes with higher risk.
That's correct. And so I typically will go in the browser itself and turn it off to say, don't ask me, and then you use the password manager to manage that stuff. The key things to remember is, number one, never reuse a password. Don't if it's going to be some sort of password and you use a variation of that and add an exclamation point at the end, now I'm going to do a 1, now I'm going to do a 2, just do something completely different. A password manager is always going to help you and suggest a password for you. They can, and it's, to me, it looks like gobbledygook. I don't know what any of my passwords look like. I don't care what they are. And so the important thing when you use a password manager is that there is a master password to access it. And so you want to make sure that the password that you use to get into that is something you've never used and will never use for anything else, and that itself is long and secure. And that really can be almost like a complete sentence that you will not forget.
So you could say, I like dogs who are black and with white spots.
Yes.
And that's a more secure password than upper, lower numbers and symbols.
Correct. Absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah. And again, I guess to your point, it goes back to computing power. What about some of this two-factor authentication stuff? That seems to be very popular as well. So password manager is one option. Two-factor authentication. What is that all about?
So two-factor authentication, also referred to as multi-factor authentication, and so that is either something you know, like a password or a PIN, something you have, like it could be like a security key. And something you are could be your phone number. I'm sorry, your finger, your face, something like that. So that's the multi-factor authentication aspect in there. Any service that you use to log into, if it offers multi-factor authentication, first of all, any service you use, if it doesn't offer it, you should consider whether or not you really need that service. But if it does offer it, make sure that you go into your profile. It's always going to be your head in the upper right corner. Click that, go to profile, and look for a security area. Make sure that you turn it on for yourself. And from there, our most common experience I think that people are going to see is either you get emailed a code to log into a service, or it sends you a text
with the number.
Number, right? Yeah. And you put the code in there. So, and that's what's referred to as SMS texting for that. That is better than nothing. However, it is possible for phone numbers to be taken over, cloned, SIM swap, all of that type of stuff that can happen, and so I do advise clients to use a multi-authenticator app. There's a lot of options that are out there. My particular one that I do like is called Authy. And what it does is you can install an app on your phone, or it can be on your desktop PC, but it'll generate 30-second codes that will expire every 30 seconds. Okay. And so if you log into Facebook, you've got a rotating code that's there. When you go to log in, it says put in your 6-digit code, whatever it is, and that code will expire after 30 seconds. So you just have to pop it in at that point in time.
So when it comes to phishing and spear phishing emails, what should folks look out for? Like, what are some of the red flags that would clearly say, hey, this is probably not anything that you want to deal with? Although I would imagine that they're getting better, so there's less obvious red flags on some of these things.
A lot of things you can look out for is, number one, it's going to convey a sense of urgency, something that needs to take immediate action. So that's always going to raise a red flag. You'll always want to look at who it's from. You might recognize the name, but if you double check the email address that it's actually coming from, because it probably it won't match that name, meaning it's going to come from some weird email address. The other thing is, if there are hyperlinks in there of something that you might have, if you put your mouse pointer over it and just hover, it'll actually tell you exactly where it wants to take you. And if it doesn't look like it matches with that, then definitely don't click it. What I'll always advise people is that if there's any doubt in your mind, delete the email.
Yeah.
If it's
When in
super
doubt,
important,
right.
someone will contact
Someone
you
will
directly.
get you back. Yeah.
Yeah.
The IRS, your phone company, they're not just going to send you an email and that's it. That's all you're ever going to hear, and show up at your house and then arrest you. That's the typical IRS one. To your point, if it requires you to act quickly, then you might want to slow down and not react.
Absolutely. And again, we're going along the lines of that multi-factor authentication. That additional authentication would be, call that person. Did you send me this?
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And thinking of that in terms of the types of services that are out there for folks to use, you actually have a very specific recommendation of what people should be using rather than some of these monthly fee service types of options out there for protecting your information. To use credit freezes instead of like a LifeLock or something like that.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about what that means.
Yeah. So for anybody that wants to protect their credit identity itself, I would always recommend that they implement a credit freeze, and all the reporting agencies will do it. It's a free service. I know we talked about before. You've done it for yourself.
Yeah, and you have to every 9 months you have to go back in and then renew it. But it is a free service, and it just requires you to reach out to one of the 3 credit agencies.
Absolutely. And then so if you have to make a major purchase, it's not the end of the world. You can call up, put a temporary unfreeze on that, and then freeze it back up and all that stuff. But yeah, it's something you have to renew on a regular basis. Make a reminder, make sure it's done, but nothing can be done to you if that's frozen.
So we got to talk about the topic, of course, that everybody is talking about, and that is AI, ChatGPT. Is it going to make the world a better place, or is it the end of civilization? It seems to me like I just hear the extremes on this new technology.
Has the internet made the world a better place, or has it been a scourge on civilization?
Well, some could argue either way on that. Correct.
So yeah, it's and from the standpoint, people think it's going to eliminate jobs. I mean, we used to have lamplighters. We don't have them anymore.
Very true.
We have social media marketers. We didn't have that anymore. So there's jobs that can get created. There's jobs that can go away. Right now, I think it's a great tool in terms of writing. In my field, some people are using it to fine-tune scripting.
Sure.
But from a nefarious standpoint, you could have someone that says, write me some ransomware.
Right.
And
very quickly.
There's that bad part.
Yeah. None of this was created by AI. This is just you and me.
No, correct.
No artificial intelligence here. Real human intelligence. Anyway, the music means we got to wrap it on up. Ron, thanks for joining us on the program.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Hopefully our listening audience found it informative, a little different than kind of the topics that we would normally discuss here on Dollars and Cents, but it certainly makes sense to help protect your money and avoid cybercrime. So with that, we thank you all for listening to the program. Join us next week, or if we can help you during the week, call the office at 407-629-6477 or visit the website nelsonfinancialplanning.com. Have a great rest of the day.